That dog knew more about loyalty than half the guests at our wedding." That was the first thing I said when I saw her, and I meant every word. Sitting there, right at the edge of the aisle, like she'd been invited, like she was waiting for someone specific, was a shaggy brown dog with eyes too human for comfort. "My name's Carter Hensley, and I've seen some strange things working as a groundskeeper at Marigold Hills wedding estate, but nothing like what happened the day Lily showed up." We called her Lily later. She didn't come with a name tag or collar. No chipped ID either. Just a dusty coat, a pink ribbon fraying at the neck, and a heart-stopping gaze that made you think she had something urgent to say. But she never barked, never growled, never begged. She just sat. It was a Saturday morning, early spring, first big wedding of the season. I'd come in at 6 a.m. to set up the outdoor chairs before the florist got there. And there she was, right on the path leading to the altar, head high, back straight, as if she'd rehearsed it. I tried clapping my hands to get her to move. Nothing. Tossed a bit of sausage from my breakfast sandwich. Ignored. She wasn't hungry. At least not for food. By 8 a.m., our wedding planner Ginny noticed her too. "That's gonna spook the bride," she said, arms crossed, heels crunching the gravel. "I'll handle it," I told her, though I had no idea how. I tried leashing her. No collar. Tried carrying her. She gently moved away, always just far enough that I'd have to give up. It wasn't resistance. It was something else. Intentional. Like she needed to be there. Ginny called animal control, but they couldn't come till late afternoon. "Low priority," they said. So we left her alone and hoped she'd wander off. She didn't. The guests started arriving at noon. Photos were taken, the couple beamed, and through it all, Lily sat perfectly still at the aisle's beginning like a silent usher. Kids ran by, tossing petals. She didn't flinch. The bride's father passed her and muttered something about good luck. Even the minister gave her a small nod. I'll admit it, I started to feel like maybe she was meant to be there. A guest no one invited, but everyone accepted. During the vows, something happened. The groom, Ethan, paused mid-sentence. He looked straight at Lily, blinked a few times, and then his eyes welled up. I was standing off to the side and saw the whole thing. After the ceremony, he came over to me and said, "That dog looks just like Rosie, my childhood dog. We lost her when I was 13. Now, I'm not a superstitious man. I don't believe in ghosts or reincarnation, but I do believe in moments that feel too perfect to be coincidence. That dog sitting there in silence, like she knew the weight of the day, made something stir in everyone. When the dancing started, Lily finally moved. Not away, but closer. She lay down near the tables, watching the crowd, never begging for food, never barking, just observing, like she was making sure things went right. Ethan's grandmother, who'd barely smiled all afternoon, knelt beside her and whispered, "Thank you." I heard it clear as a bell. After the reception ended, most guests filed out, and the staff cleaned up. Lily stayed. I gave her a bowl of water and a slice of turkey from the leftover platter. She sniffed both, took the turkey gently, and curled up under the archway lights. I couldn't leave her. Not after that. So, I brought her home. I live in a small ranch house about 15 minutes from the estate. My wife, Janine, wasn't surprised. "You always said we'd get a dog again someday. Looks like she picked us." Over the next week, I tried posting online about her. No matches. No one came forward. Vet said she was about 6, healthy, but a little underweight. Not chipped, no scars, nothing to say she'd been mistreated. Just alone. And here's the wild part, A week later, another wedding. Same venue. Different couple. And Lily did the same thing. Sat at the aisle. Quiet, watching. This time I brought her myself. Figured she'd stay by my side, but no. She walked over to the aisle and sat down on her own. Like clockwork. When the bride walked by, she smiled. "Who's the dog?" "Part of the staff?" I joked. "No," she said. "She's the reason I stopped crying. Something about her calmed me." That kept happening. Week after week. Every wedding. Rain or shine. Lily became part of the ceremony, though never officially. The brides called her lucky. The grooms fed her cake scraps. One little boy asked if she could walk his mom down the aisle. She never barked. Never caused trouble. Always sat in the exact same spot, like she was waiting for something or someone. But she looked peaceful, content, like she was doing what she came for. That's when I started keeping a journal. Something about her felt like a story I had to track. Each week, something changed. Not about her, but in the people who met her. There was the grieving widower who smiled for the first time in months after she licked his hand. The photographer who made her the mascot of the estate. Even Ginny came around. Bought her a custom bow tie collar in peach and cream. Still, she never came when called. Not to me, not to anyone. Not even to Janine, who gave her biscuits shaped like tiny hearts. But she stayed. That's how the first few weeks went. And deep down, I knew she wasn't just staying for us. She was waiting, watching, looking for someone who hadn't come yet. And when that person finally arrived, well, that's when the story really started. 3 weeks after Lily first sat at that wedding aisle, something changed. But not in her. In me. It was a Tuesday afternoon, 2 days after another ceremony where she quietly held her post, and I found myself staring out the window at home, wondering if she was waiting for something more specific than a face. Maybe a sound, a smell, a moment. I'd seen dogs do incredible things, but nothing quite like her routine. Every Saturday, she hopped in my truck, calm as a cucumber, and every time we reached Marigold Hills, she made a beeline for the aisle, settled herself down, and waited. I wasn't the only one noticing. The couple from last weekend had left a thank you card, not just for the venue, but specifically for Lily. It read, "We had no idea we needed her there until she was. She made it all feel safer." Ginny started weaving her into the prep plans. "Make sure Lily's got a water bowl near the arch," she'd say, almost offhandedly. It wasn't long before bridesmaids started asking if she'd be there, almost like she was part of the decor, only more alive, more comforting. That week, we had 2 weddings booked, Friday evening and Saturday morning. I brought Lily in both days, though I didn't need to coax her. The moment I grabbed my work keys off the counter, she'd trot over to the door, tail wagging, already waiting in front of the passenger side of the truck. Friday's wedding went smoothly, cool breeze rustling the vines along the fence, the couple glowing. Lily sat, same spot, same silence. But that night, something new happened. A man lingered after the ceremony, walking around the grounds long after the rest had gone. I noticed him from the tool shed while I was locking up. He had one of those deep-set frowns you don't see unless someone's been holding it for years. Short-cropped gray hair, tie loosened at the neck, hands shoved deep in his suit pockets. Lily walked straight over to him. No hesitation. Sat down right in front of him and looked up. He just stared. Then, slowly, like he wasn't even aware, he knelt and touched her head. Stayed there like that for a good minute, saying nothing. Then he stood, gave her one last look, and walked to his car. The next morning, Ginny told me the man was the bride's uncle. He'd lost his wife 2 months before. First time he'd left the house since the funeral. "I think that dog's some kind of therapist," she muttered, flipping through the schedule on her clipboard. And maybe she was. She didn't fix things, but she filled a space. The kind that opened up when grief crept in, when people thought they'd moved on but hadn't. That Saturday, I stayed close to Lily during the reception. She kept watching the guests, tail giving the occasional slow wag. Then a little girl, maybe 5 or 6, came over with frosting on her nose and a half-eaten cookie in her hand. She sat down beside Lily, leaned against her like they'd known each other for years, and fed her crumbs off her palm. The girl's dad caught the moment on his phone, and the photo ended up going viral in one of those feel-good Facebook groups. By Monday, the venue's inbox was flooded with questions. "Is the dog available for my June wedding? Can we include the wedding dog in our family portraits? Does she do private visits?" Ginny looked like she'd swallowed a lemon when she realized we might have something that couldn't be monetized. "We're not turning her into a prop," I told her. She sighed. "I know, but she's special, and people know it." I started wondering about her past. Maybe if I knew where she came from, I could understand why she kept waiting. Why here? Why this place? I brought her to the vet again, just to see if maybe I'd missed something. They scanned her again, still no chip. They ran a blood test for any illnesses. Nothing. Clean bill of health. And still no one came forward. One night, Janine found me at the kitchen table with a dozen printouts of missing dog posters from the past year spread out in front of me. "You really think she's someone's lost dog?" she asked, pouring 2 mugs of tea. "She's not stray, not really," I said. "She waits like she's got a reason." Janine smiled and set the tea down. Maybe she's just waiting for someone to notice what they've been missing. That stuck with me. Later that week, a man came to the estate, not for a wedding, but to see Lily. His name was Doug Hartman. He'd seen the photo online and swore she looked like his dog Mabel, lost during a cross-country move 2 years ago. He brought a few photos, same floppy ears, same soft eyes, but the markings were different. When he called, "Mabel?" Lily didn't flinch. Doug knelt beside her and tried again. Lily sniffed his hand politely but turned away. After a while, he nodded, stood up, and said, "Guess she's not mine after all, but she's where she belongs." Word spread. One local paper did a feature. "The Wedding Dog of Marigold Hills." A week later, a TV crew came out to shoot a short segment. Lily didn't react to the cameras or the boom mics. She just sat in her usual spot, same as always. It was during that segment that a new name popped up, one that chilled me a little. A woman called the station and said she recognized the pink ribbon Lily wore. Said she used to work at a rescue shelter upstate. Claimed a woman had dropped off a dog that looked exactly like Lily about 2 years ago. Dropped off was putting it kindly. Said her husband had died, and she was moving to Florida. No room for the dog, no paperwork, just a ribbon and a note. "Thank you for taking care of her." That story twisted something inside me. Because if that was true, Lily hadn't just wandered, she'd been left. Which meant every week, every aisle she waited at, she wasn't just helping. She might have been hoping. And yet, she wasn't broken, not bitter, not afraid. That Saturday, I took a photo of her as she watched another bride walk by, veil flowing behind her like mist in a breeze. Lily didn't blink, just sat still, tail sweeping the grass once, as if in approval. The couple that day asked if she could be in the group photo. The photographer knelt and snapped the picture of all of them, smiling, arms linked, and one calm, noble dog in front. Later, when the bride hugged me goodbye, she whispered, "She made the day whole." I didn't know then how true those words would be, but I had a feeling Lily did. She always seemed to know things a few steps before the rest of us caught on. And the person she was truly waiting for, the one who had to come through that gate one day? We were getting closer to that moment, even if we didn't know it yet. I still remember the exact sound her tail made against the stone path that morning. It was soft, rhythmic, like someone drumming lightly on an old countertop with their fingers. That's how I knew she was already waiting before I even stepped out of the truck. 3rd week of April, flowers blooming, wind carrying the scent of fresh mulch and early roses. Lily was ahead of me, seated in her usual spot before I could unlock the tool shed. It was like clockwork by then. She didn't even look back anymore to check if I was following. She knew where she belonged. I had started jotting little notes in the back of my work log, not about landscaping or equipment maintenance, but Lily's interactions, her behavior, who she went to, who she avoided, what she reacted to. And by now, I had enough entries to start seeing patterns. Lily never approached anyone who looked too happy. Not giddy, not serene. But she did something else entirely when people carried something heavier than just wedding nerves. I saw it again that Saturday. The father of the bride looked like he was swallowing a storm during rehearsal. Rigid shoulders, eyes darting, forcing a smile. When the ceremony began, Lily did her usual routine. But right as he was walking his daughter down the aisle, she rose, something she rarely did, and walked parallel to them, not in the way, not disruptive, just shadowing them gently from the grass. He glanced at her and exhaled, like he'd been holding his breath for years. I didn't need to know his backstory. Lily did. I told Janine that night. She didn't seem surprised. "Some dogs just have that gift," she said, stirring soup at the stove. "Like how some people walk into a room and instantly know who needs a hug." "But she doesn't hug," I said. "No, she just shows up. Sometimes that's enough." The venue was getting busier with spring in full bloom. We had 2 weddings every weekend, sometimes 3, and Lily kept her pace, never tired, never overwhelmed. Guests whispered about her now. They didn't pet her unless she allowed it, didn't coax her, didn't feed her without asking. She had become, somehow, sacred. I still didn't have answers. But that week, a letter arrived in the mail. It wasn't addressed to me or the venue. It was addressed to the dog at Marigold Hills. Inside was a simple card, hand-drawn daisies on the front, and in neat cursive, "To the one who sat beside me when no one else noticed I was struggling. You reminded me that love doesn't always need words. Thank you for sitting in silence with me." No name, no return address. Ginny laminated it and taped it to the break room fridge. "First fan mail," she said with a smirk. That Friday, we had a wedding booked for a couple from out of state. They'd only seen the venue in photos and booked it off recommendations. When they arrived the night before for rehearsal, the bride, Emily, spotted Lily and froze. She knelt down, reaching slowly. Lily walked straight to her and sat. Emily started crying. Everyone around her was confused. But later that evening, she told me quietly, "She looks exactly like the dog I lost 2 years ago, right down to the eyes." And then she added, "I had a dream last week. I was standing in front of an altar, crying. That same dog was there. I thought it was just nerves. Now, I don't know." Janine always said animals see things we don't. Maybe Lily sensed something before we even did. That night I stayed late, Lily at my side, just walking the perimeter of the venue. It was peaceful. Moonlight brushing the treetops, owls in the distance, the hum of quiet after celebration. We walked in silence until we reached the far bench behind the garden arch. Lily stopped, sat, stared. I looked to see what had caught her attention, but there was nothing, just the empty parking lot, one lamppost flickering slightly. She didn't move for several minutes. I said her name. She didn't flinch. Then, finally, she stood and walked back toward the garden, slow steps, head slightly lowered. It wasn't sadness, but it felt like resignation. I don't know why that moment stayed with me so much. Maybe because it was the first time I realized she might be hoping for something that wasn't coming. The next morning, something new happened. We had a guest speaker, a military chaplain officiating for a former Marine and his bride. During the reception, the groom's brother gave a speech about loss, resilience, and the people who sit beside us when we're at our lowest. Lily walked right up to him in the middle of it and laid down at his feet. The man paused, looked down, and nodded. He didn't speak another word, just knelt and hugged her. The silence after that held more meaning than the speech ever could. That evening, I saw something I hadn't seen before. Lily stood at the end of the path, watching the departing guests, her posture different, like she expected someone. Then a car pulled in. Not for the wedding. Just a local family that had rented the venue's garden for an anniversary dinner. But out of the back seat came a boy, maybe 10, who froze when he saw her. He ran. "Millie!" he shouted, arms wide. Lily tilted her head. He dropped to his knees, hugged her, cried. The mother ran after him, apologizing. "He does that sometimes. Every brown dog is Millie." But Lily didn't back away. She let him hold her. And then something happened I'll never forget, and she licked his cheek once, gently, and then walked away, back to her spot by the archway. That night, after we closed up, I sat in my truck for a long time. Lily in the passenger seat, window down, ears twitching with the breeze. I turned to her and said, "Do you even know what you're waiting for?" She didn't answer. Of course not, but for the first time I thought maybe it wasn't just one person. Maybe she was waiting for all of them, everyone who ever needed to be reminded they weren't alone. The next morning, Janine asked if I'd ever thought about writing Lily's story down. I said I wasn't much of a writer. "You don't have to be," she said. "Just tell it like you see it." So I did. And I kept watching. Because Lily was still waiting, still watching, still hoping. And though I didn't know who she needed to see, I had a feeling we were getting closer, because she was starting to stay a little longer each day at the edge of the lot, ears perked whenever a new car arrived. She wasn't ready to stop. Not yet. By the 4th month of Lily's quiet presence at the venue, she had gone from mystery to something like myth. Couples who hadn't even booked yet asked about her during tours. "Is the dog still there?" they'd say before asking about the view or the menu. And still, every Saturday, rain or shine, she took her place near the edge of the aisle. She wasn't trained. No one commanded her. It was just what she did. That morning started different, though. It was overcast, with thick clouds draped low like someone had pressed pause on the sky. I got to the venue just after dawn, and Lily wasn't in her spot. She wasn't in the garden, or by the fountain, or under the bench where she sometimes rested before guests arrived. For the first time in months, I panicked. I checked every corner of the estate. I whistled. I even opened the truck door in case she was waiting to be let in. Nothing. It wasn't like her to vanish. Not without purpose. By the time Ginny arrived, I was on my second lap around the property, heart pounding harder than I cared to admit. "She's probably nearby," Ginny said, trying to sound calm but glancing toward the trees like she didn't believe it herself. It was 10 minutes before the guests arrived that I found her. Not by the altar, not even near the reception tent. She was lying beside a little girl. The girl was maybe 7 or 8, seated alone on the small stone bench behind the rose garden. Her flower crown had slipped sideways, her shoes were muddy, her face was pale. And Lily had her head resting on the girl's knee like she was made for the moment. I didn't approach right away, just watched. After a minute, the girl's mother found her. She crouched down and said something soft, something I couldn't hear, and the girl slowly nodded. She stood brushing off her dress and hugged Lily tight. Later, I learned she'd had a panic attack. Her parents had divorced a month ago. She was the flower girl, and being surrounded by happy couples and loud crowds had overwhelmed her. She wouldn't talk to anyone, her mom said. But then the dog came, and it was like she could breathe again. When the ceremony began, Lily returned to her usual place, as if nothing had happened, as if she hadn't just made someone whole again. The bride that day had asked for a rustic theme with wildflowers instead of roses and hay bales for seats. She didn't blink when she saw Lily. "Oh, there she is," she said, smiling. "I was hoping she'd show." After the wedding, while guests were still sipping lemonade and nibbling on tiny fruit tarts, Lily sat quietly near the dance floor. Several couples tried to pose beside her for pictures. Some got lucky. Others she turned from gently, like she had her own rules about when to be seen. I kept watching her that day, more curious than usual. There was something different in how she moved, a little more alert, ears perked often. She spent longer near the garden that afternoon, occasionally sniffing the wind, looking east. Then, as the sun started dipping behind the hills, a van pulled into the lot. It wasn't for the wedding. I knew that instantly. Out stepped a man in a blue jacket and jeans, hair thinning at the top, holding a folded map in one hand and a leash in the other. Lily froze. She didn't run, didn't bark, just stared. The man looked around slowly, eyes scanning the lawn. Then they landed on her. His face changed, mouth parted slightly, shoulders dropped. He knelt, called out, barely a whisper. "Junie?" Lily didn't move. He said it again, voice cracking. "Junebug." She took a step forward, then another, and another. The man dropped the leash, covered his mouth with both hands. Tears filled his eyes. I didn't move. No one did. She reached him and stopped inches away. He knelt. She sniffed his face, then licked his chin. And that was it. The floodgates opened. He hugged her so tight I thought they'd both fall over. She didn't fight it, just leaned into him like she'd been waiting for years. The man sat back on the grass, legs sprawled, arms still around her. "I looked everywhere," he said, rocking slightly. 2 years. You disappeared. I thought someone stole you. Or worse. But you were here." He said her name again, soft and slow. "Junebug." Ginny came over, silent, eyes wide. The man introduced himself. Walter Pierce, retired carpenter from a town about 2 counties over. His dog had vanished one stormy night when a gate blew open. He'd searched shelters, posted flyers, even paid for newspaper ads. "She was always calm," he said. "Never bolted, never chased squirrels. She just disappeared." I told him what Lily, Junebug, had been doing. About the weddings, the aisle, the guests. He smiled, tears still on his cheeks. "She always did love people, loved gatherings. She was there when my daughter got married, sat beside her the whole ceremony like she was part of it." We stood there for a long time. No one spoke. Even the music from the speakers seemed quieter. "I don't know what to do," Walter said finally. "She found something here. A purpose. Maybe even healed someone." "You came all this way," I said. "You found her." He nodded, looked at Junebug. "What do you want to do, girl?" he asked. She licked his hand, but didn't move from where she was. That night he left, but not with her. Not yet. "She's not ready," he said. "But I'll visit, and when she's ready, she'll come home." He gave me his number, sent over old photos of her, lying on a porch swing, wearing a Santa hat, riding in the passenger seat with her head out the window. It felt like someone had opened a door we didn't even know existed. Lily, Junebug, wasn't lost anymore. But she wasn't done either. That next weekend, she took her usual spot at the aisle, and I couldn't help but wonder, was she waiting again? Or had she simply chosen to stay a little longer? For us. The following week, everything felt a little brighter, though not much had changed in any obvious way. Lily, Junebug, I suppose, returned to her spot by the aisle like she always did, calm as ever. If anything, she seemed more at peace now. Her posture was looser, more relaxed. But she still watched every car that pulled in, still followed the guests with her eyes, still waited at the start of the ceremony path like she was holding space for someone. I thought maybe after reuniting with Walter, she'd stop coming. Or at least start staying home more. But no, she was there, waiting for me by the truck every Saturday morning like clockwork, tail wagging gently as if to say, "We've got work to do." Walter did come back, 3 times that month. He never pressured her, just sat beside her during ceremonies or watched from a distance, nodding at me like we shared some secret. The second time, he brought a folded blanket and a peanut butter sandwich. She didn't eat the sandwich, but she curled up on the blanket during the reception. And she stayed. "She's still not ready," he said quietly. "I don't think she'll leave until she knows she can," I replied. That Saturday's wedding was a small one. Just 30 guests, all family. The groom's sister used a wheelchair, and Lily, out of nowhere, walked alongside her as she made her way to the front row. Sat beside her until the ceremony was over, then moved on like she'd just filled an assignment. It was never showy, never attention-seeking, just presence. Janine came by the venue for the first time that month. She'd always meant to visit, always wanted to see Lily in action, but her weekends were usually packed with helping her sister out at the bakery. She stood behind the trellis near the reception tent, watching as Lily made her way from table to table. "She's not working," Janine said. "She's ministering." That word stuck. Over the next few weeks, Lily grew even more intuitive. She'd start moving before things happened, before a groomsman tripped, before a child burst into tears, before a grandmother needed help standing. And always, she seemed to be right where she was needed. It was the first Saturday in May when something unusual happened. The bride that day, a woman named Kelly, walked into the bridal suite carrying a framed photo. A golden retriever, tongue out, eyes gleaming. "This was Max," she told Ginny. "He passed 6 months ago. He was supposed to walk me down the aisle." Ginny didn't know what to say. Neither did I. But Lily did. She followed Kelly the entire rehearsal, never more than a few feet away. When the wedding began, Lily stepped beside her at the start of the aisle, on her own, and walked with her all the way to the altar. Not fast, not slow, just steady, step for step. Kelly never looked away from her, and when she reached the groom, she bent down, kissed the top of Lily's head, and whispered, "Thank you." The audience had tears in their eyes. So did I. That night, I brought out a small notebook. I'd filled the back pages of my work log with quick scribbles, but now I wanted something more official. A record. I titled the first page, The Book of Lily. Each week, I wrote down what she did, who she helped, and what little miracles unfolded around her. And there were many. Too many to call coincidence. One couple renewed their vows after 10 years and said Lily's quiet presence reminded them of the dog they'd adopted right after their wedding. A dog they'd loved fiercely and lost too soon. Another groom gave his speech and couldn't get through the last line. Lily walked up beside him and sat. He smiled, steadied his voice, and said, "That dog has better timing than my best man." Every time I thought I'd seen the peak of her story, something else happened. One Sunday afternoon, a delivery driver stopped by with crates of wine for an upcoming reception. As he unloaded the last box, Lily trotted up behind him and barked once. A single, sharp sound. He turned just in time to catch a crate tipping off the dolly, saved it before it hit the ground. "She warned me," he said, stunned. "She does that," I replied. That same week, the venue's owner, Margaret, came by for an inspection. She was known for being sharp, tough, hard to please. Ginny and I were both bracing for complaints. But Margaret stopped when she saw Lily, watched her for a moment, then said, "She's the best employee you've got." I wasn't sure if she was joking, but then she handed me a printed name badge that read, Lily, Guest Experience Coordinator. I framed it. We kept it under the counter in the main office. That Saturday, Lily took her place as usual. A storm had rolled through overnight, so the lawn was damp, the chairs wiped down just in time for the guests to arrive. I half expected her to stay in the truck that day, but she didn't. The bride wore boots under her gown. The groom had mud on his pant cuffs, but they were laughing, giddy, in love. And Lily? She didn't sit at the aisle that time. She stood behind the minister, facing the guests, watching them, like she was protecting something precious. A man in the back row whispered to his wife, "That dog's seen more love stories than anyone here." He was probably right. That evening, as the guests danced and the fairy lights blinked on one by one, Lily stayed close to the garden path. A child dropped a slice of cake near her. She didn't touch it. Instead, she followed an elderly woman back to her table, then rested her head on the woman's knee until her breathing steadied. When it was time to go, I held the truck door open longer than usual. She didn't move. I called her gently. Still, nothing. Then slowly she looked back at the archway one more time and climbed in. That night, Janine said, "You know, she might never go home with Walter, not because she doesn't love him, but because she's already home." I didn't reply. I just reached for the notebook, wrote the final sentence of the entry. Today, Lily walked every guest to the edge of their grief and back again. Then closed the book. Not the story, just the chapter. Because whatever Lily was doing here, it wasn't finished. Not yet, Tommy. By the time June settled in, the wedding season was in full bloom, and Lily had become more than a presence. She was a ritual. Guests no longer asked if she'd be there. They assumed it. People brought treats for her, toys, even handwritten letters folded into bouquet holders, thanking her in advance for what they hoped she might do. Still, none of it fazed her. Lily was the same, quiet, composed, watchful. She came when she was needed and vanished when she wasn't, always finding the exact place to sit, the exact moment to appear. It was the 6th wedding that month when I started to notice something else, something subtle but undeniable. She wasn't just calming people anymore. She was changing them. The bride that Saturday had been nervous all morning. Kelly was her name, same as the woman from the week before, though this one was younger, quieter, jittery. She'd confessed to me, of all people, while I was arranging chairs near the fountain. "I keep thinking I'm not ready," she'd said, her voice barely above a whisper. "Everyone keeps saying I should feel something more." I didn't know how to answer, so I didn't try. I just nodded, then pointed at Lily, who was curled up under the arbor near the roses. "She'll know what to do," I said. Kelly didn't believe me. Not really. But 2 hours later, just as she stepped out to walk the aisle, Lily trotted up beside her and sat down. Kelly froze. Her father reached for her elbow, but Lily just looked up at her. And whatever storm had been building behind Kelly's eyes, doubt, fear, pressure, it passed. She walked the aisle with her head held high. After the vows, she hugged me. "Thank you for bringing her." "I didn't," I said. "She brought herself." That weekend was unusually busy. 2 more weddings followed, one Sunday morning and another Sunday evening. Lily showed up for both, like it was the most natural thing in the world. It was the Sunday evening one that hit me hardest. The couple, Dana and Greg, were older, late 60s, both widowed, finding love again. It was a simple affair, few decorations, just close friends and family. They hadn't planned to include Lily in anything. They didn't even know about her. But halfway through Greg's speech, he paused. Tears welled in his eyes. He tried to speak, then stopped. Lily stood, walked to him. He knelt, one hand over his chest, the other on her back. Then he laughed, and the room relaxed with him. "Even the dog knows I'm a sap," he said. Everyone smiled. But what I noticed was how many guests cried after that, and how they hugged each other a little tighter. Monday morning, I sat on the porch with Janine, coffee in hand, Lily dozing beside us. We didn't speak for a long time. Then Janine said, "What if she's not waiting for someone anymore?" "What do you mean?" "She used to sit like she was scanning every face. You saw it. She'd get restless sometimes, like she thought someone might show up and didn't. But lately..." I looked down at her. Her eyes were closed, paws tucked neatly beneath her, completely at ease. "She's staying longer," I said, "even after the last guests leave." Janine nodded. "Maybe she's decided she's where she's meant to be." That week, Walter didn't visit. First time in a while. I half expected Lily to search for him. She didn't. But she did linger in the parking lot longer than usual one evening, tail wagging when a couple from Chicago stopped to admire the garden. They told me they'd booked a tour off the strength of a single photo, the one of Lily walking beside a bride under a canopy of lights. She looked like peace," the woman said. "We knew we had to come." They stayed for 2 hours. Didn't even book that day. Just walked the grounds with Lily shadowing them like a host. That night, I wrote in my notebook, "She is not waiting anymore. She is welcoming." June continued like that. Dozens of guests, dozens of tiny moments. One woman whispered that she felt her father's presence when Lily brushed past her chair. Another said her panic vanished the second Lily sat on her feet. I stopped trying to explain it. Everyone had their own story, their own reason to believe. One Tuesday, I brought her to the vet just for a checkup. The usual routine. She passed every test with ease. The vet laughed, said she was healthier than most dogs half her age. But when we left, Lily didn't jump into the truck right away. She turned back toward the vet's office. Stood there. And that's when I saw him. A young boy, maybe 12, standing just inside the glass doors, face pale, arms crossed. He looked afraid. His mother crouched beside him, holding a tiny chihuahua wrapped in a blanket. Lily walked up to the doors and sat down. The boy saw her, walked outside slowly. "Can I pet her?" he asked me. "You don't need to ask me," I said. "Ask her." He knelt. She leaned into him. "I was scared," he said quietly. "I thought maybe I was going to lose her." Lily pressed her head into his chest. He didn't cry. He smiled. That night, I didn't write in the notebook. I just sat on the porch, Lily at my feet, and tried to hold on to the quiet. Because for the first time, I wasn't worried about what she was doing or why. I just felt lucky to be beside her. And even though I didn't know what tomorrow would bring, I knew this much. Lily would show up. She always did. And not just for the weddings. For anyone who needed reminding that love shows up, often without a word. Sometimes on 4 legs. Always right on time. By mid-July, the heat settled in like it had unpacked its bags for the summer. The lawn at Marigold Hills browned in spots. The roses wilted faster in their beds, and the gravel paths crunched dry underfoot. The weddings didn't stop, though. If anything, they grew more frequent, and the venue buzzed with fans, ice buckets, and extra pitchers of lemonade just to keep guests from melting. And through it all, Lily kept showing up, like she was immune to weather, fatigue, or time. Still sitting by the aisle before I even had the chairs lined up. Still stepping forward only when it mattered. She knew things. That part had become clear. That Saturday morning, we had our first triple ceremony. Morning, afternoon, and twilight. 3 couples, 3 sets of guests, and 1 dog that somehow managed to be present in a different way each time. At the morning wedding, she stayed near the bride's grandfather, who had tremors and a slow gait, but refused to use his cane. Lily walked beside him as he made his way to the front, matching his pace without touching him. Just being there. Later, he called her an angel. At the afternoon wedding, she sat with a teenage boy who hadn't spoken all day. No one knew why. They'd chalked it up to mood or nerves. But after Lily lay at his feet, he whispered to his mom, "She reminds me of our old dog." Then he started talking, eating, smiling. The evening wedding, though, that's the one that stayed with me. The couple, Derek and Jamie, had requested no photos, no video, no social media posts. They wanted something private, just for them. They arrived quietly, said their vows beneath the arbor in the fading light. No music, no speeches. Lily watched from the hill. When the last words were spoken, she walked down slowly, stopping at the very center of the aisle. Jamie reached for her. Lily let herself be hugged. "I've waited so long for this piece," Jamie said into her fur. We didn't ask what she meant. We didn't need to. Lily had already heard it. By the time I locked up that night, Lily was still by the rose garden. Janine had come by with a container of cut-up watermelon, and we sat under the fairy lights, eating in silence. Lily lay between us, eyes half closed, breathing steady. "She's slowing down a little," Janine said. "She's earned it." I reached down, ran a hand over her back. "Do you think she'll ever stop?" I asked. Janine shrugged. "Maybe when she knows she's no longer needed." The next morning, I found something new near the archway. A sketch, done in charcoal. Lily sitting, head tilted slightly, with the arbor arching behind her. No name, no signature, just a small note taped to the back. "Thank you for being the part of our day we didn't know we needed." I framed it and hung it in the tool shed. Monday through Friday, Lily stayed with me. We walked the edges of the property, checked the fences, refilled the fountains. During the week, she rested more, napped longer on the porch, dreamed with her paws twitching in the air. But every Saturday, she rose with the sun. She seemed content, but also I could feel something stirring. It was in the way she lingered near cars longer than before. The way she paused when the wind picked up, like she was listening. Thursday, we had a surprise. A couple called last minute, asking if they could hold a ceremony that weekend. Not a wedding, an adoption. They'd been fostering a child named Jordan, age 11. The papers had finally gone through. They wanted to make it official in a place that felt special. They'd seen Lily's photo in a local article and said, "That's what sealed it. We knew it had to be there." We said yes. Saturday morning, they arrived with Jordan in the back seat. He stepped out slowly, oversized blazer and a serious expression that didn't match his age. Lily walked up to him, sat, and looked up. He didn't smile, but he reached down and touched her ear. The ceremony was short, quiet. The papers were signed under the trellis. Jordan's new parents read him a letter they'd written together. He listened, said thank you, hugged them both with stiff arms, and then he turned to Lily. "You want to come live with us?" he asked her. She just wagged her tail once. Later, I explained to them that Lily belonged here. She wasn't mine to give. Jordan nodded, but when they left, he leaned out the window and said, "You're my friend now, okay?" Lily trotted behind their car for a few steps, then stopped. Watched until the car disappeared. She walked back slowly, almost like she was carrying something heavy in her chest. That afternoon, I sat with her under the oak tree. Just the two of us. The breeze stirred the leaves. She rested her head on my boot. "You've done a lot for people," I said. "But you're allowed to rest too." She blinked. I could have sworn she understood. That night, I checked the notebook. The pages were filling fast. I wrote, "She made a child feel chosen. That's more than most of us do in a lifetime." Sunday morning, Ginny called. One of the upcoming brides wanted to know if Lily would be in her photo. Not maybe. Not hopefully. Would. "She's becoming a legend," Ginny said. She already was. Janine and I started talking about what might come next. Not because we expected anything to change, but because we could feel it, the way you can sense rain before it falls. Lily wasn't restless, but she was shifting. Sometimes I'd catch her staring at the hills beyond the venue, long stretches of road, open sky. Maybe she'd spent so long waiting for someone to return, she forgot to look forward. But not anymore. She was still showing up. Still changing people. And I was starting to wonder, maybe that's what she was waiting for all along. Not someone, but the moment she'd be ready to move on. Only Lily would know when that moment came, and we'd be right there when it did. It was during the second weekend of July that I began to understand just how deep Lily's connection to the venue had grown. Not just to the weddings or the guests, but to the earth beneath her paws, the stones she paced over, the wind that carried the music across the garden. It was subtle at first. She took new paths on our morning walks. Instead of heading directly to the aisle, she veered toward the fountain, circled the rose beds, paused beneath the gazebo like she was remembering something. She sniffed the ground longer, sat beside the arbor longer, almost like she was cataloging the world she'd made her home in, or preparing to pass something on. But every Saturday, she still took her place. Without fail. The wedding that weekend was one of the largest we'd ever hosted. Over 200 guests, a live string quartet, and decorations that arrived in 3 separate trucks. The bride was a novelist. The groom, a wildlife photographer. They'd met during a charity auction and spent their first date building a birdhouse together. They'd asked, of course, if Lily would be present. Even included a drawing of her on the back of the ceremony program. Lily, sitting with a garland of flowers around her neck. She didn't wear one that day, never did. But she sat as if she knew her likeness was printed and passed out to every hand. And as the couple walked back up the aisle, hands joined, confetti in the air, Lily followed behind them. Not beside, not ahead, just behind. 3 steps back, like she was escorting their joy. During the reception, someone brought a bowl of strawberries to her. She sniffed them politely and turned her head. She never took food she didn't need. Instead, she wandered toward the photographer's station. And that's when it happened. The photographer, a young man named Casey, had been adjusting his lens when Lily sat in front of him, right in the middle of the frame. He didn't shoo her away. He crouched, snapped 3 photos. Later, he showed them to me. She looked straight at me, he said. It's like she posed. Like she was saying, "Don't forget this." He printed one and gave it to me. It now sits above the entryway in the main office. The week that followed was blistering, the kind of heat that made the air feel heavy. We reduced staff hours, shifted some events indoors, and set up extra fans and misting stations. I worried Lily might skip a day, might stay in the shade, or refuse the ride entirely. But she came, as always. She was slower, lay down more often, drank more water. But she was there. That Saturday's couple had been through a lot. The bride had lost her sister only 4 months earlier. The wedding had been postponed once already. They didn't expect joy, just completion. A day that marked a new chapter. Lily walked beside the bride just before she stepped onto the path. No words passed between them, but I saw the bride's shoulders ease, saw her breathe deeper, saw her smile, not for the camera or the guests, but for herself. She whispered to me later. She made it feel safe again. Sunday evening, after all the guests had left, I sat on the lawn with Lily beside me, the sky streaked orange and pink. I was tired. So was she. "She's carrying so many of their stories," Janine said when she brought us lemonade. "Doesn't it wear on her?" "I think it fills her," I said. "Like she takes a piece of each one, but leaves a piece behind, too." That night, Lily didn't sleep in her usual spot at the foot of the bed. She climbed up next to me, curled into my side. For the first time since I'd met her, she whimpered in her sleep. Not distressed, not afraid, just dreaming deep. Monday came with a surprise. Margaret, the venue owner, called a staff meeting. She wanted to unveil a new idea, an official wedding package named after Lily. "The Lily Experience," she said, holding up a mock-up brochure. "We'll include photos with her, a custom collar for the couple to place on her during the ceremony, maybe a story booklet." I said no. Flat out. "She's not a package. She's not a service." Margaret frowned. Ginny backed me up. "If people want her, they'll get her," Ginny said. "But not because they paid for it, because she chose to be there." Margaret dropped it. And that afternoon, Lily walked up to me during cleanup, nudged my leg, and leaned her head against my thigh. I'd never felt prouder. That week, Walter called, said he'd be in town and wanted to visit, not to take her home, just to see her. When he arrived, Lily approached him slowly, tail low, ears alert. She sniffed his shoes, licked his hand, then lay down beside him. He didn't speak for a while, just sat on the grass with her, scratching behind her ears. Finally, he looked at me. She's not mine anymore. Not in the way she was. But that doesn't hurt, not now. He left a few hours later, gave her one last pat on the head. No goodbye. Just, see you around, sweetheart. That night, Lily didn't eat much, not because she was sick, just tired. I brushed her fur gently, cleaned her ears, let her rest. She'd earned it. And as I sat with her, the fan humming in the background, I thought about all the people she'd helped, the tears she'd dried, the laughter she'd made possible. Not with tricks, not with barks, just by being there, always there. The world kept spinning, new couples kept arriving, and Lily kept showing up, ready to remind them of something they didn't know they needed, that they were seen, that they mattered, and that someone, somewhere, would always sit beside them, without needing to be asked. The first morning of September came with a soft breeze and sky like polished glass. It felt like a pause, the kind nature takes before shifting seasons. I opened the front gate of Marigold Hills and expected to see Lily waiting by the porch steps, as she always had since that first mysterious morning she appeared. But she wasn't there. She didn't come when I whistled, didn't appear when I opened the passenger door of the truck. The cushion in the back was untouched. I walked the garden paths once, then twice. By the third lap, I found her under the rose arbor, resting. Eyes half closed, chin on her paws, tail giving one slow wag as I approached. She looked up at me, and I knew. She would come with me that day. But only because she wanted to. Not because she needed to anymore. We had 2 weddings on the schedule, one in the morning, one in the early evening. The first was a small ceremony, just 20 guests, a second marriage for both, quiet and honest. Lily sat beneath a lilac bush during the vows, eyes on the couple, ears twitching with every whispered word. At the end, the bride knelt and held out a rose from her bouquet. Lily took it gently between her teeth. No one had taught her that. It was just something she did. The photographer captured the moment. It made the local paper's front page the next day. The second wedding was the kind Lily used to walk through like a conductor. Large crowd, nervous parents, a rowdy cousin or two. But this time, she stayed off to the side. She didn't follow the bride. Didn't trail behind the ring bearer. Instead, she curled beside a boy sitting by himself at the far edge of the lawn. Maybe 12 or 13, dressed neatly, but with a sadness that clung to him. Later, I learned his father had passed just a month earlier. I didn't want to come, he'd told his aunt, but the dog made it okay. Lily rested her chin on his lap the entire reception. That night, after cleanup, I sat with her beneath the fairy lights. The garden smelled of sun-warmed grass and leftover frosting. Lily didn't eat anything. She just sat beside me. "She's winding down," Janine said gently, joining us with a blanket over her shoulders. I nodded. "She's already given everything." The next morning, Lily didn't rise when I did. She stayed curled at the foot of the bed, eyes closed, breathing steady. I made breakfast, checked emails, walked outside, waited by the truck. Still, she didn't stir. I sat beside her, brushing her fur, whispering her name. She opened one eye and blinked at me slowly, so I stayed. I called Ginny, told her Lily wouldn't be in that day. Ginny didn't ask why. She just said, "Let her rest. We'll manage." That evening, Walter stopped by. He brought a folded flannel blanket and a jar of peanut butter biscuits. "She liked these best," he said, placing them gently beside her. Lily sniffed, gave one small lick to his hand, and went back to sleep. "Do you think she knows?" he asked. "I think she decided," I said. For 3 days, Lily stayed home. No walks, no truck rides, just quiet. Janine and I sat with her, read aloud sometimes, played soft music. People dropped off notes, photos, paintings of her done in watercolors and charcoal. Stories written in guest books, now turned to Lily books. The 4th morning, she stood, walked slowly to the door, looked back at me. "All right," I said. "Let's go." We drove to Marigold Hills. She stepped out on her own, took slow steps to the path she knew better than any of us. She stopped by the arbor. Sat. The wedding was simple. A vow renewal. An older couple. 40 years of marriage. As the wife began her vows, she glanced over at Lily and smiled. "She was here the first time, you know, and she's still here, just like love should be." Lily stayed through the ceremony. When it ended, she walked to the top of the hill that overlooked the entire estate. She sat. I stood beside her. The wind picked up, carried the sound of laughter from below, music from a portable speaker, the clinking of glasses, the high-pitched joy of a toddler's squeal. Lily looked over it all, ears forward, chest rising. And then she lay down. That night, she didn't come home. She stayed at the top of the hill. We checked on her every few hours. She was resting, breathing soft, but not moving. The sun rose. She was still there. When I reached her side and knelt, I knew. She wasn't gone, not yet. But she was ready. I lay beside her, hand resting on her shoulder. "You did it," I whispered. "You were everything." That afternoon, Lily closed her eyes for the last time. There was no ceremony, no speeches, just a soft breeze and the sound of birds returning to the garden. We buried her under the arbor. A small wooden sign marked the spot. Lily. She sat where she was needed. Couples still ask about her. Some never knew her, only saw her in the photos. But they all feel her, because Lily never left. She became part of the place, as real and enduring as the stones beneath the aisle, the vines on the fence, the whisper of wind through the rose garden. And every time a bride pauses for breath, or a groom wipes his eyes, or a child laughs in the silence, she's there, waiting, watching, still reminding us all what it means to be present, and to love, simply by sitting beside someone who needs it. The first wedding after Lily passed felt quiet, even though nothing about it was. The band played upbeat tunes, the guests laughed freely, the drinks clinked, and the bride's veil caught the wind like a sail. But beneath it all, there was a hush, a space, as though everyone sensed something important had gone. I felt it from the moment I arrived. Not just absence, but presence, too, a kind of echo, the way you hear a bell's ring long after it stops. Ginny met me at the gate. She had sunglasses on, even though it was cloudy. I didn't ask. I didn't need to. "She always beat us here," Ginny said, glancing toward the arbor. I nodded. "I keep thinking I'll see her tail rounding the fountain." We said nothing more. But every step I took felt like memory. Her favorite spots, the patches of grass worn smooth, the water bowl that still sat by the shed door. I hadn't touched it. The bride that day was new to town, didn't know the history, but her mother had read about Lily in the paper. She approached me during the rehearsal with a photo printed on cardstock. "This," she said, handing it over, "was my daughter's first dog. Looked just like yours. She passed when my daughter was 12. I always said she'd find her way back. I took the photo, smiled. You're not the first to say that. When the ceremony began, the aisle looked almost too perfect. Empty in the way a familiar couch looks when someone forgets to sit in their usual spot. I don't know if anyone else saw it, but halfway through the vows, a butterfly, deep amber with black edges, fluttered through the rose arbor and landed on the bride's bouquet. It stayed there for the rest of the ceremony. Even when she tossed it in the air, the butterfly lifted gently and circled above, then drifted toward the arbor. I didn't say a word, but I wrote it down that night. First entry in a new notebook. The book of Lily had ended, but something else had begun. Over the next few weeks, people began leaving things by the arbor. Not flowers, not trinkets, letters. Folded, sealed, sometimes just tucked under a smooth stone. I never read them. That wasn't for me. But I counted. By the end of the month, there were 56. One envelope had a paw print drawn in the corner. Another had a child's handwriting that said, "Thank you for letting me cry." I asked Margaret if we could leave the arbor as is. She didn't hesitate. "It belongs to her now," she said. That fall, a groom asked if he could place his boutonniere at Lily's marker before walking down the aisle. He didn't say why. He didn't need to. After the ceremony, I found him sitting cross-legged in front of her wooden sign, eyes closed, lips moving without sound. The stories kept coming. A couple from Ohio brought their rescue dog and said they'd found their venue after reading a blog post about a golden retriever who blessed weddings without ever being trained. They said it reminded them what love looked like when it didn't ask for anything in return. Another bride included Lily's photo in her bouquet. A tiny pendant frame looped into the silk ribbon. "She brought my parents back together," she told me. "They hadn't spoken in 5 years, but they saw her, and something just softened." Even the staff changed. We spoke softer, listened more, laughed longer. It was like she'd left behind a blueprint, not for behavior, but for being. Janine and I began spending Sunday mornings at the arbor, coffee in hand, not talking much. Sometimes we brought a new flower to plant. Other times, we just sat. One morning, a boy no older than 9 rode up on his bike. He stopped when he saw us, hesitated, then stepped forward and placed a small rock on Lily's grave. It was painted yellow, with a tiny heart in the middle. "Is it okay?" he asked. "Of course," Janine said. "She helped my mom," he said. "She said the dog sat with her after my grandma died." He didn't wait for a reply. Just got back on his bike and rode off. People say grief fades. Maybe. But this didn't feel like fading. It felt like flowering, like something had been planted and now grew on its own. In early October, we held an evening event, a candlelit ceremony. The couple had met at a grief support group. They asked if they could end the night at the arbor. We lined the path with votives. A soft trail of light leading from the dance floor to Lily's resting place. They didn't say anything once they got there, just held hands. The bride laid a single lily on the grass. The wind picked up gently, carried their silence away. I added the moment to the new notebook. The Book of Us, I called it. Because that's what Lily had created. Not a tradition, not a legend, but a space, a place where people remembered how to be human. By December, we'd built a small bench beside the arbor. Guests could sit there if they wanted, or not. There was no plaque, just wood and stillness. A boy proposed there. A widow scattered rose petals there. And once, a man sat for 2 hours and whispered poems to the trees. I never interrupted. The spring after, we hosted our first wedding season without her. But it didn't feel like she was gone. Every now and then someone would say it. I felt her. And I believed them. Because I still felt her too. Every time I walked past the arbor, every time someone sat in silence, every time the wind moved gently through the rose leaves without a sound. Lily had taught us something none of us could explain, but all of us carried. She reminded us what love looks like when it simply stays. Not loud, not demanding, just present, just there. And when people ask me how long she was part of the venue, I say this: she never left. Because some love isn't measured in years or leashes. It's measured in where you choose to sit when someone needs you. And Lily, well, she always chose the right spot.